Thank you, Brittany. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for spending the time this morning. I'm gonna give you as much information as I can and talk a little bit about our agency and maybe help you understand our services a little bit more and engage with you as much as possible. So I am Amy Fort, and I'm the Assistant Bureau Chief for Region 3 in the Illinois Department of Human Services, and our division is the Division of Rehabilitation Services. We are commonly known as DOORS or DRS. Some people might know us as ORS from back in the day. We've changed our acronyms quite a bit. I'm going to hone down on college and university sponsorship this morning and just kind of give you, this is the first time I've really gotten into the weeds a little bit about our services for college sponsorship. But if you have any questions, feel free to throw them in the chat, and I think we'll have some time at the end. I think Brittany's going to keep an eye on the time for us as well. Those of you who have not heard of the Division of Rehabilitation Services, we are the state's lead agency serving people with disabilities. We have two services under my purview, which is vocational services and home services. Our home services are focused on keeping people in the home to live as independently as possible without having to go into the more expensive option, which is a nursing home. So if we can keep people in their home and keep them independent, we provide services in that respect. We also have a vocational program which helps people with disability find employment. And sometimes the employment goal for our individuals requires training. And so that's why if we agree to support an employment goal and it requires an associate's degree, a bachelor's degree, possibly a vocational certificate, or other types of training, then we will sponsor that. And I'm just going to talk about that program. So we're really going to center on that program. Before I do that, I did want to give you a little information about our services in general. We offer so many services. I mean, we would need a PowerPoint for each service and maybe even more time to go through each of these. But these are just kind of an overview of our services. We do support people with disabilities to find employment, to pursue career options. And some of the things we pay for in pursuit of employment. And I always say that because the person who gets services from DRS has to have a disability, and they have to want to work, or that's the other thing. If they don't want to work, they've opened the wrong door. So they have to have a disability and then want to work. And we presume that everyone's going to benefit from our services. So we don't really exclude people, even if their disability is profound. We still feel that there's options for them. So these are some of the services that we provide. A lot of them, I say my favorite is vehicle modification. Because we've been able to help a lot of people get to and from work who haven't had full use of arms or their legs. And so we've been able to modify vehicles for them. And that's probably been one of the services that I've liked the most. We provide lots of other things. I put funds for transportation because I don't want people to walk away from this thinking that we provide transportation. We support the independent use of transportation. So we will provide funding in the right situation. It's so important. I repeated it twice, so my apologies. We help with job placement and job retention. That's a big part of what we do as well. We help youth age 14 to 22 and adults. So we serve people age 14 and then all the way up. There's actually no age limit on our services for vocational services. But what I wanted to do in this presentation today, and I think what Brittany has asked, is for us to really focus on the college training programs that we offer. It is a big portion of what we do. It's my second favorite program, vehicle modification being the first, and the second is college training. We have a director, Director Ronnie Patrick, who has really worked hard over the past couple of years to open up our services to give people with disabilities more opportunities to engage in training. At our core, we believe that people with disabilities will benefit from college training because when you go off to college, whether it's a community college, or it could be a private or a large university, you're going to increase your potential to earn more money because you're going to have more opportunities and resources, just as a person without a disability would. Um, we have eliminated the financial barriers to encourage our youth and adults, but also, I'm sorry, youth and adults to attend training. So we have some financial rules, and I'm not going to go into what our former financial rules are. I'm going to tell you what our current financial rules allow. But we've eliminated a lot of those barriers. So for people who can't afford to go to a community college or go to a university, we've really reduced that. And at our core, we also want people with disabilities to have information about services and resources because we find it is hugely important that every person with a disability makes their own choices about their own life. And they do that through what we call informed choice. And so we're not here to make decisions for our customers. We're here to provide the information and resources so that they can choose the career path that works best for them. Just a little historical. I'm pretty sure I'm accurate on these, but this is kind of a walk through how we've loosened up some of our financial criteria. So in 2013, I was a VR counselor at that time in Galesburg, and we started what's called the Community College Initiative. And what that was at the time is we were encouraging um, people with disabilities to go to a community college, and we agreed to waive their financial analysis. So what that meant is that regardless of what their income or their socioeconomic background, we were opening the door that we were going to waive that. We felt that community college training is hugely important for people with disabilities, and we wanted to give them more opportunities for that. We also, at the same time, opened up who we serve. And so we have what's called the order of selection. And so we have, under that order of selection, there's four criteria. We serve people who are the most significant with their disabilities, so they require the most services, the most attention. Their disability is likely to be the most severe. And then we have the next group is people who have a very significant disability. And then we have, and that's just people who are just under most significant. Then we have significant disability. And then the fourth criteria is just disability. So in 2013, we opened it up to the third category so we could serve more people. Um, Fast forwarding to 2022, Director Patrick added to our community college rules that we were going to waive the financial analysis, not just for people who wanted to go to an Illinois community college, but we were going to waive the financial analysis for anyone who wanted to go to a community college in any of the states that border Illinois. And the reason we did that is because we have places like in the Quad Cities or over in Danville, Illinois, and then up in the northern part of the state, and actually the southern part of the state too, but mostly those three quadrants, northwest and east, Indiana, Wisconsin, and Iowa, that we had a lot of community colleges there that students, only live an hour from that community college. And so that's kind of how we started it. So we opened up the door so that people could go out of state with DRS funding. And then 2004 was a huge year for us, and we are right now busy as bees because we have now waived the financial analysis for all students who wish to attend any college, any university, or receive any type of training. We also opened up the fourth category under our order of selection, and so now we serve people who have a disability, not most significant, not very significant, not just significant, but that they have a disability. So we are expanding services. A lot of youth are benefiting from these expansion of services because they are just graduating from high school. And we have a lot of people coming to us who want to pursue that college training. So it's been a big plus for us, and I'm very happy that we're able to serve more people. And right now is college time, and I can tell you that we are busier than we've been in years serving people with disabilities to go to college. I'll just tell you a little bit about what it actually means when we say that we're agreeing that we're going to send customers with disabilities to college to get an associate's degree, bachelor's degree, a certificate. We also sponsor master's degrees, PhDs, and also when we do other special training like law school, things like that. What it means to be financially exempt is that we're just saying that any type of training that the counselor, our vocational counselors, and our customers agree that they're going to do, we don't run a financial analysis. So we don't collect tax returns, we don't collect pay stubs. We're just opening up that training. Um, DRS customers who are enrolled in training will be exempt from customer financial participation for any costs that are directly related to their attendance. So this is a little more specific that we are helping to pay for the costs of tuition and fees, book supplies. There might be support costs such as transportation to and from campus, whether that be public transportation. It could be private transportation where a student is driving themselves to and from school, or maybe they're getting a lift from a family member or friends. We're agreeing that we'll pay for that. And then for those students who go to a four-year college or university, we agree to pay for housing and meal plans. So I kind of wanted to give you a picture of what the financial scope of what we pay for looks like um, for our customers. I apologize if this is in your way. I keep moving it. I don't know if you can see it or not, but I'll keep moving it. Um, so we do have rules, and I kind of wanted to just explain, that we're opening the door for services, but we have rules for what we do that guide us so that we are spending money responsibly. We're spending money on people who we feel will benefit from college training and who eventually are going to work and get a job in the field that they went to college for. Um, we do require, and this will be a little bit later, but we do require that every person who gets college training from us applies for FAFSA. They have to do a FAFSA application and apply for financial aid. We do encourage people to apply for scholarships. That's something that we talk to our students about. The schools talk to their students about applying for scholarships as well, whether they be public or private. So what we do with those scholarships is any public scholarship, Pell Grant, any MAP awards, private scholarships, all that the customer gets, we use to reduce our contribution. So we're still really able to send people to school at little to no cost because we're using those scholarships also. But let's say somebody doesn't have any of these scholarships. They've applied for financial aid and they don't qualify. We're still agreeing to pay for that portion. So if there's no scholarships to subtract from the tuition and fees, we will go ahead and pay that amount. We call ourselves the payer of last resort. And so DRS always pays last. So whatever is paid through public or private scholarships, and the private scholarships have to be restricted. So they have to go towards like tuition, or some private scholarships will come in and say, this is to purchase housing or a laptop or things like that. We use those scholarships for what they're intended. But we always are gonna pay last. Okay, so we we don't pay just any amount of money for students with disabilities to go to college or to go to an in-state or even out-of-state university. These are kind of our rules for those people who attend to go to a public community college, an Illinois community college, or an in-state university. DRS, we agree to pay up to the published cost for in-state tuition and fees. So the community colleges set those rates, the public universities set those rates, and we agree to pay up to that amount. So Illinois Valley Community College, whatever their tuition cost is, that's what we agree to pay. If you go to Carl Sandburg College in Galesburg, we pay that amount. We agree to assist with the purchase of any medical health insurance provided by the school if it's required. Usually, community colleges don't require it, but a lot of in-state universities do require that a student carry some type of health insurance. We do require that people apply for Medicaid. We call that a comparable benefit, where again, we're the payer of last resort. So if they can have insurance through Medicaid or other means, private insurance with their family, and the school says, yes, this meets our criteria, then we're good and we can waive that. But if you don't have medical insurance that doesn't fit the school's requirement, we will actually pay for that health insurance. Usually it's about, I mean, it may be a little more, around 900, maybe 1,000 a term, depending on the school. We also help assist with the purchase of books, supplies, materials, required training supplies that are needed to complete the training program. So, for example, if someone's going to get their bachelor's degree to become a nurse um, at a university, or they may be going to a community college to become an LPN, and let's say they require the stethoscope, the scrubs, the shoes, we will purchase all those things for them as a requirement for their training. Same thing if someone's going to get a certificate in welding, if they need the welding supplies, the gloves, the steel-toed boots, we'll purchase those. That's required for training. And our expectation is that after training, they will use that same equipment. When they go to start working, they will use that for their job. We also have some rules. I actually think this is pretty lenient in terms of what we're able to pay. But let's say someone wants to go to a private college. Now we've agreed on the first slide that we're paying for the published amount of tuition for an Illinois community college or for an Illinois university. But we do have people, again, I mentioned informed choice earlier. Um, Students can go to whatever school they want to go to. And based on, we still have to have an agreement on the employment goal. So the counselor and the customer have to agree on the employment goal. And that employment goal, I'm sorry, that training, that college training has to be required to meet that employment goal. But in that informed choice, students might want to go to a private college. They might want to go to a college or a university out of state. And like I said earlier, we do sponsor people to go to graduate programs or other tech programs. There's a lot of tech programs like welding programs or even cosmetology schools that are private, and we agree to sponsor for those. However, we cap our maximum amount. So for 2025 and 26, this current academic year, we are agreeing to pay up to $8,211 per term, and that is for out-of-state college universities or a private, like a private liberal arts school. If someone wants to go to graduate school, our amount this year is capped at $11,534 per term. So let's say that, let's take this, oh, I got to go back, sorry. This amount, $8,211. Let's say someone gets a Pell or MAP award for $5,000. Then we will take $8,211 minus 5,000 and we'll pay what's left over, which would be $3,211. So that's kind of how we apply um, the scholarships and things and the academic awards that people get. I hope I'm not going too fast for you guys. I hope you guys, if you have questions, just put them in the chat. Um, and I always remind people this, even our counselors, our vocational counselors, that we are agreeing as an agency to assist people um, financially towards college training only when that degree is needed to reach the employment goal. And so, if we have someone who comes in and they're a little iffy about their employment goal, what we do prior to that is we actually offer what's called vocational guidance and counseling. We do career exploration. So we really want to open the customer's eyes up to like what's out there in terms of training. We also do look at the labor market trends in specific areas. So Our counselors, we belong to the Workforce Investment Opportunity Act, all the agencies that are involved in that, including community colleges. We all kind of know what job sectors are trending in an area. Over the last couple of years, of course, anything in the health field has been popular, transportation, and actually some employment and this is not in all areas in Illinois, so please don't think I'm saying that, but just in the areas I've worked in, those have kind of been the two biggest trends that we've had. So, we share that information with our customers. We say, there's a lot of job opportunities in the health field. So if we have someone who's coming in and they're not sure what they want to do, we might explore that as an option for them. In addition to like whatever they come in, what their strengths are, what their interests are. But that's the job between the vocational counselor and our customers to come up with that employment goal. But that employment goal is critical to all of our services. So I told you my favorite service is a vehicle modification. Well, if somebody comes in and says, "Hey, I need a vehicle modification. Could you do that for us?" Um, that's not the question is, can you help me get a job? So if they're interested in getting work, then yes, we can help with a vehicle modification or we can help with college training. But if the employment goal is not on the radar, then our services don't exist for that person. So we have to have that employment goal. We do not require that a student apply for and accept student loans. Students may apply for loans if they need some additional spending money or um, if they choose to go to a school that exceeds our cap. I've had that happen before. Like we've had some people who want to go to a culinary school that's private and we're capped at, $8,000 or whatever, 8,000, 2011, 8,211. The tuition for that term might be 13,000 or 14 or 15,000. We'll tell our student, through informed choice, you can go to that school. We'll pay up to this amount, but you're required to pay for that extra amount. Um, so they can take loans, but we don't require that they take loans. And I just wanted to make that clear as well. And then most students who go to community colleges, they don't have to apply for any loans because everything's going to be taken care of. I sound pretty social worky, I'm sure. Like we are, we're providing all these services, carte blanche, but we do have rules, and so we have time frames, we have academic requirements, and so I'm going to go through some of those with you, um, and just kind of give you an overview. So we have time frames to complete degrees. So if someone wants to go to a community college, we give them up to 3 years with our financial support to achieve an associate's degree. If they ever need more time than that, let's say they need three and a half, 3 years and another term, we're not going to pay that extra term. That's going to be the student's responsibility because we're going to follow our time frames. Um, Once somebody gets their associates, they have junior status. And so then we give people an additional 3 years if they want to go get their bachelor's degree, an additional 3 years from the associate's degree, or if they're a junior to get the bachelor's degree. So again, we don't tell people we give you 6 years to get a bachelor's degree. So let's say we have a high school student who comes in and they want to go to Western Illinois University and they want to be a special ed teacher. We don't say we give you 6 years to get that degree. What we say to them is that we break it down. We give you 3 years to become a junior. And so, in that, if the student is struggling a little bit, our VR counselors work with that student to make sure they're accessing resources and doing everything they need to do to be successful in that program. So, and then once they become a junior, then we start the clock again and we say, okay, we give you 3 additional years. So we really monitor it and we don't, we want to make sure progress is being made in that time frame. So there's more rules about that. Um, we don't have a rule about not paying for those high school level courses. So if somebody comes in and they test, I can't even remember the name of the test. You guys know the name of the test because it used, um, it's been so long since I've been a VR counselor, I have forgotten it. So if somebody could put it in chat, that would be very helpful. But to test people's academic ability at a community college. So if they come in and they're required to take like a high school level math course, or a high school level English course, reading, writing course, then what we do is we have to look at those 3 years. So we do tell the student, if let's say they have a couple of high school courses they have to complete before they can actually get to taking college courses, we'll tell our customers ahead of time that, your 3 years starts even when you take those zero level courses, those high school level courses. So sometimes people will say, well, let me try out college first. Let me see if I can do this, and then I'll come back after this term and let's talk and I'll see how I did. Or we'll have people who on the other end will say, well, we'll pay for these colleges up front, but if you get to the point where you've reached 3 years, you're going to be on your own to pay for those additional years. And of course, if the student agrees to do that, then we're good to go. Um, and the last one is just, I've said this several times, but the VR counselor and the student have to determine the training program can be completed within those timeframes. They have to agree on the employment goal, and they have to agree that this training is going to help the student um, reach that employment goal. We also have GPA requirements, so the student has to maintain a cumulative GPA of 2.0 or better. The exception to that is that sometimes students go into a certain program, and that program may require a 2.5 or a 3.0 grade point average in order to stay in the program. So when that happens, we increase ours to match the program's GPA. So we do monitor the GPA, and of course, some students do make mistakes, and they don't do well, or they fail a class, or they do, So we have some rules that help people guide them through that. So let's take the first one. So let's say we've got a high school student who in the fall starts their first college courses, and we've talked to them about accessing the disability support office. And they say, "Oh, no, no, I'm good. I'm going to go ahead. I got A's and B's in high school. I've overcome my reading limitations. I'm gonna just do this on my own." And maybe that first term they don't do as well as they thought they did. They didn't ask for help, and they come in and their GPA is below a 2.0. So our rules then kick in. We give that student one more term to get that GPA above 2.0 or better. It does have to be a two-pronged test. So it has to be their cumulative GPA has to go above a 2.0, and the semester GPA has to be above a 2.0. Once that's met, we give them that one term, and if they meet that, then we're good to go. We'll continue sponsoring, for those 3 years until they get their associate's degree. If they fall below it a second time, and that semester afterwards, their GPA still is not above a 2.0, we have that conversation that we have to pull out our financial help. But if they do at some point get their semester and cumulative GPA back up, we will jump back in and help sponsor again. So we're not spending money on people who aren't making progress in college. This poor guy, yeah, I don't even remember his name, but I remember he went to one of our state universities. I was his VR counselor, and he didn't talk to me much during his first term, and he ended up failing every class. And bless his heart, he told me, I didn't go to class. I sat in my room and played video games, and we both knew that we were done because there was no way he was going to get his GPA above if he failed all of his classes. So we do have situations like that where people just, college is not something they're ready for right now, and they don't, maybe their motivation is low. So we don't really go much further after that happens. We do have some students who fail classes. And so our rule with that is that if you fail a class that we've paid for, then the next term you enroll, you have to pay for equal number of credit hours. And we always tell our students that the communication with your VR counselor is critical. So if you feel like you're going to fail your class, or you feel like you're going to drop, or you have to withdraw from class, please talk to your VR counselor ahead of time, so that they're in the know. What our VR counselors can do is ask questions like, are you accessing the TRIO program? Are you going to the disability office? Are you scheduling one-on-one sessions with your professors? Are you going to study groups? Are you doing all the things that you can do to be successful? Are you taking your medication? Are you taking care of yourself? Are you getting your child care taken care of if you have a child? If are you, all these things that can interrupt. Do you have a space at home where you can study? Those are all things as a VR counselor we want to explore when the students come to us and say we're at risk. We're at risk of not being successful. We want to step in and intervene and help them out as much as we can. Um, Sometimes we have students who have a medical emergency during a term, and what we'll do is we'll actually pause sponsorship. We do require that they give us medical documentation. We require that they notify the school and us. Sometimes we have students who just tell us, and then we find out later they didn't tell the school that they have a medical emergency. But we're there to remind them to make sure that, if there is a pause in training, that the communication is there and that we have that medical documentation. One of the things that we pay for that it can impact community college students, but mostly it's students who go to a university, to a four-year school or private university. We pay for increased costs for the student to attend school. So they're at home in their home unit with their family, and they are going to another town to go to college. That's an increased cost for the family. And so we agree to pay that amount of money. So we have a calculation. I actually think it's very, very low, which again is good for our customers. That we require that people pay $198 per month for their food. So if they have a meal plan on campus, that they will contribute $198 per month that they're enrolled, and they'll pay that for their food. Same thing with housing. I'm sorry, I reversed that. 198 for their housing and 189 for food. So if they're they're living on campus, they still have to pay that 198, and we just take 198 times 4 or 5 months, however months they're enrolled in school, and that's what they're responsible for paying. You guys might have questions over that one. Um, that's really, I mean, that's probably the nuts and bolts of our services. It looks like we're going to have some time for some questions, but I did want to go through um, some students that you're familiar with might be DRS customers or they might not be. The best way to apply for services is the QR code is here. I always tell people if you Google Rehabilitation Services Illinois referral, or even if you Google Rehabilitation Services in Illinois, you're going to find our referral page. You're going to find our office locator. We've got 46 some offices across the state of Illinois. So we're located wherever you folks are located. We also have a toll-free number and we have an email. Brittany has my presentation, so I don't know, Brittany, if you're planning on distributing this or not, but feel free to do so. Um, Once people apply, and I've got the QR code on here for those of you who want to pull out your cameras. We do I just wanted to say if you know of anyone who's interested in DRS services and they're interested in this college sponsorship, we do require they apply for FAFSA. And if they are not already a customer, um, if they have medical or mental health documentation of a disability, they can provide that to us and we can use that to determine eligibility. We have a lot of youth who still have copies of their IEP plans, their 504 plans. Hopefully, they still have those because that's the tool that they use to get accommodations on campus. Um, if they don't have either of these, maybe it's a new medical condition, a new diagnosis, or maybe it's an adult who's 30 years old and they decided to go back to school and they used to have an IEP, but they don't have a copy of it. We can actually, as part of our eligibility criteria, we can send people out to get testing. So we can pay for the testing to get either psychological testing or mental health testing. We could actually do physical therapy testing, occupational therapy, any kind of testing that will give us a diagnosis. We can use it to determine eligibility. So I guess what I'm saying is that if somebody suspects they have a disability, and they don't have that right documentation, we can assist. Your doors counselor for college sponsorship will need a copy of high school transcripts. So we do talk to, we have it used to be called STEP programs. This year it's called PACT. It's pre-employment services for youth in high school. Um, we ask people just hold on to your transcripts because you're going to need those at some point. If someone's actually already enrolled, they've been going to a college and maybe they're coming to us and they've been in college before, we do request college transcripts because we want to see how they're doing academically. We want to see what their academic aptitude is before we agree to sponsor. We ask that they bring us an acceptance letter from the college or university that they plan to attend, including their class schedule from that college, any placement tests. Again, I forgot the name of that placement test. It'll come to me later. The financial aid award letter from the college or from the community college or the university. That will help us look at if they got Pell or MAP awards or any other scholarships. We ask for the tuition bill or the tuition statement from the college, a list of required books, excuse me, usually a copy of the syllabus is what students will give us, or sometimes they have a price list from the bookstore that they can give us as well. So that kind of concludes my presentation. This is my contact information. These are the offices in Illinois that I oversee. I'm the bureau chief, assistant bureau chief for Region 3. There are there's five of us. So we have two bureau chiefs up in Chicago. We have a Region 1 North and Region 1 South. We have a Region 2, which is just above. I kind of cover the I-74 corridor. Region 2 is just north of us, and Region 4 is just south of me, mostly from Springfield down. And then we have Region 5. We have another bureau chief in Region 5, which is all the way down South Carbondale area, Cairo, Anna, places like that. And so I guess I'll open it up, Brittany, if anybody has any questions. Be happy to answer them. And I guess I can stop sharing. Unless you want me to keep this up, I can do that too.
Yep, however works. I went ahead and I did share the slide deck in the chat. So folks
Okay.
will be able to download that. It will also be shared with the recording as well.
Okay.
So, if your Zoom is acting funny like mine does every once in a while and doesn't let you take information, we'll make sure you get it, I promise.
Okay.
But yeah, we did have a few questions in the chat here. So one that was kind of reoccurring is, are there specific disabilities that makes one eligible for these services? Or what is kind of that eligibility piece for these?
So a disability is defined as a physical disability. It could be a mental health disability or a cognitive disability. We cover just about any disability that you could think of. So, I mean, it really varies. I'd say because we do a lot of youth services, we get a lot of students with um, attention deficit disorder, maybe ADD or ADHD, autism diagnosis, learning disabilities in reading, writing, or math, cognitive impairments, and that's formally, we call them intellectual disabilities, but it's formally, some type of mental retardation. And then I think it's been called later on uh, some developmental disability. Now we call them intellectual disabilities. And what the intellectual disability is, anyone who's been tested for their IQ, and they may be performing at their IQ, but it might be in the 50s or lower than that, maybe 60s. I've done some eligibility of someone who's had an IQ of 60 before, but definitely the learning disabilities, people who are performing under their expected IQ level. Those are kind of the main ones. Well, and then we do have people who have a lot of behavioral issues, mental health diagnosis, maybe some behavioral disorders. Going through high school, they were in detention a lot or they got suspended a lot. Just can't get along with people, can't follow instructions. Those are some of the big ones for our high school students. We do have adults or, the physical disabilities can range from blindness, hearing impairment, an arthritic condition, limited use of arms and legs because of the physical condition. Um, di Diabetes can be a big one as well. There's really no limit on the disability. Anxiety, depression, even mild anxiety and depression, because if it's limiting their ability, if it's interfering with their daily activities and their ability to achieve the employment goal that they want to, they're likely going to be eligible. So it's all kinds of disabilities, both from the perspective of profound disabilities, where we have people who need intensive one-on-one work or job coaching. So if they were to get a job, they need job coaching, all the way up to someone who, might want to go to law school. I had a young woman who had a reading disorder. Her limitation in reading, she was able to overcome it because she was truly the hardest worker I've ever met. And she actually wanted to go to law school, and we agreed that she could do it, and she's a lawyer now, but she had that reading limitation, but she has been able to overcome it, and she's actually working in a district attorney's office in central Illinois. So we don't, if you have a diagnosis, I would say it doesn't hurt to come and ask, see if we can help with that as well. We just need documentation of that diagnosis. And it has to interfere with the disability has to interfere with communication skills, mobility issues, work tolerance, work skills, interpersonal communication, self-care. Maybe somebody has limited self-care skills or self-direction. Self-direction is a big one that we have with people who have attention issues or maybe other diagnosis. Does that help?
I think so. We had a
Okay.
couple say thanks for expanding on the
Okay.
understanding of what it means, what defined as a disability. So yes,
Yeah.
that was helpful.
Let me say one more thing about that. It's not Social Security's definition of a disability. So that really opens it up. So I myself am diagnosed with depression and anxiety. And probably if I weren't taking the medication, and I have a thyroid disorder, if I weren't taking the medications and I wasn't able to do what I'm doing now, I would probably qualify. But I'm able to do what I'm doing now without really interference. But some people may have the same condition I have and they just can't work through it. And so they may need our services at some point.
Okay, so I'm going to make my way through some of these questions here. So what processes are in place to ensure access to these funds? Availability tends to be there, but access is sometimes a challenge.
Well, we have in 2024, moving into 2025, Director Patrick, she's the Director of Division of Rehabilitation Services. She has secured funding, additional funding for us. She wants us to use these funds. And I don't know the details of it, but we are kind of sharing a pot of money with vocational rehabilitation services in other states. And I think we've been able to pull money that hasn't been spent into Illinois because we have committed ourselves to supporting people with disabilities. So we are federally funded. We have no limitations on funds at this time. So we are right now, we did have a little bit of a glitch last week because we're spending so much more money, we had a little bit of difficulty getting access to it. But what we have to do is we have to go through our caseloads and we have to justify and say, okay, we think we're going to spend about this much money. The state's very cautious about how they divvy out the money. So each of our regions has a pool and we show how we're going to spend it, and then we have access to it. I don't, it's not really a great answer to it, but right now the funding is there. We have access to it.
So we do have a few more questions in the chat, but Tasha, I see that you have your hand up, so feel free.
Yes, thank you. That was actually my question. I was asking that question because a lot of times there are different programs that we see that offer lots of services, especially like tuition assistance. The problem that you see a lot of times is while the services are offered, accessing it and getting the money from these agencies to the college is a challenge. It seems like there's sometimes a disconnect between the agencies understanding how the colleges work. For example, a place will say we pay for tuition, but they don't get that there's a certain time frame between when you register for classes and tuition has to be paid. So they'll say, well, we need to see your schedule. It's like, if you register for classes, you're going to get dropped from classes within 4 days if you don't have a payment in there. So if you need to see
I
my
see.
schedule in order for me to get the money, if I register on Monday to get my schedule, when I bring it to you on Monday, I need money back by Friday if I'm going to secure those classes because I either have to have the money for those classes or a payment plan. So I see this really sensitive disconnect between agencies and colleges because agencies have these resources but they don't have the knowledge about like how colleges work, and so students rarely can take advantage of it because of these simple mismatches. So tend
Yeah.
to at colleges you can't get that schedule that the college needs, I'm sorry, that the agency needs, because here you have to, when you register for a class to get that schedule, you have to have a payment plan within 7 days. And so I just want to put that out there, that make sure, that whatever these fail-safe processes are in place, just kind of think about how the colleges operate so that students can really access the funding.
Yeah. Tasha, it's a great point, and I want to tell you that we've been doing this for a very long time. The community college initiative, I think in my earlier slide I said it started in 2013. Well, we've been paying for college classes for students for decades. So I joined the agency in 2010. And here's what I can tell you is that each of our local offices, we have about 47 of them. We have relationships with each community college. We know who works in the bursar's office. We know who their financial aid people are. We talk to them regularly. And so we've actually, with each of our colleges, we have set up what they need from us. So I'll just tell you, for example, Carl Sandburg College in Galesburg, I was a VR counselor there. Terry worked in the bursar's office, and on July 31st, I had a list of all my students I was sponsoring for the term because we don't, if somebody comes to us in the 12th hour, right, and they say, hey, I'm on campus, I want college sponsorship, that's too late. We started with our students a long time ago, like, several months before they start. So we actually comply with what the colleges need for us to show. It's almost like a promise to pay. So they know what we're going to pay. And then most of the colleges that we work with will actually, we've agreed, we do an authorization. So we say we're going to pay this amount, and we do that before classes start. Sometimes we're doing it the week classes start, to catch up on students who are coming in late. But we have that agreement, and then they usually send us the bill in late September or October. And then once we get the bill, in 2 weeks, the college has their check.
Okay. Okay.
So yeah. So I want to assure you that we've got all of those individual relationships. And every year we revisit it because something may have changed minor with the school. They may have said, hey, we had this campus meeting and here's what we need from you, and we will comply with that. I will add one more thing. The college bookstore, we have the same relationship. So we've even had the bookstore call our offices and say, hey, we have, John Smith here, and He's putting a ball cap in his, in with his books. And they know we're not paying for that. We don't pay for the extras. We just pay for the required materials. But that's a great question, Tasha. We can do better, but I think we've been doing really well at this in our communication for as long as we've been doing it.
Omar, I see that you have your hand up.
Yeah, hi, good morning. Thank you for this information. I have a question because there have been some students here at Harper College before who like wanted to take advantage of the DRS training. And they were already working with like a DRS counselor, but they were denied because they received they basically what the student said is that they had to pick either vocational services or like job training. So I wanted to understand if that is like correct or is there a misunderstanding? Do students have to pick between the two, like career services with DRS or job training? Can they receive both? It just doesn't make sense to me.
Well, training is training. So we're going to work with our customers to provide the training that they need to accomplish their vocational goal. So it's really more focused on what the vocational goal is. The easiest one is if somebody wants to become a welder, there's different ways you can become a welder, by the way. So you can go to a community college and get the certificate training, or you can find an employer who's willing to hire you and train you. So we explore all those different options. Um, there's not really a choice. Our only choice is between job placement and training. So if we're going to help somebody find a job, we're going to put all our eggs in that basket, then we would just do job placement. But if they had, if their job, if we couldn't do job placement because they weren't ready for it because they needed training, then we put all of our eggs in the training. Where is Harper? What town is Harper College located in?
So we're in Palatine, Illinois, which is
Okay.
in the northwest suburbs of Chicago.
Okay.
Yeah. And actually the most recent example was somebody who wanted to do welding. Um,
Oh,
and so he wanted to do a short welding certificate, but he was denied because he had already selected vocational services. And I also had trouble with WIO, Title One, because I was trying to refer him over there, and they wouldn't approve him because they were saying like, well, if he cannot work full time, that they couldn't approve him. Um, so I thought like, okay, DRS could help him, get the
yeah,
training right now
yeah,
so that eventually, like in a year, he could work full time.
yeah.
But then it was that situation. So unfortunately, I mean, we found other ways to get him smaller scholarships. He still had to pay out of pocket.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I was just curious, like, because it didn't make sense to me. Like, why could you, why should you only receive one of the two? It seems like they should get both, right? Career
Yeah.
services and job training.
May I ask, what is your role at Harper College?
So I'm workforce career coordinator here. So I work with WIOA,
Okay.
um, Title One,
Okay.
and we're partners with DRS too at the American Job Center.
Okay. So any of you, if you find that, so it doesn't sound, and I don't have all the details, and I hate to say it doesn't sound right to me because I don't know the details, but it doesn't sound right to me. So, but I don't know the intricacies of the details and things like that. Like what, maybe sometimes we're not able to sponsor somebody because we're not getting enough information from them, like some of those required things. But in your role, you could tell the student, hey, I would be happy to attend that meeting with him or her to go, with the counselor. And you can be there to hear the same information and to advocate. But yeah, it doesn't sound right, but again, I don't know the details of it, but I think that's what your role is too, is to, this resource and you're hearing what I'm telling you, and so your students should be given a shot to be heard and make sure that they, that it's clear about what their employment goal is.
Mhm.
Yeah. That sounds like a region South Palatine is south of Chicago.
Yeah, I think their office is in Rolling Meadows.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. And I'm sorry that that person had that experience, but certainly, I try again. Always try again.
Yeah, I mean, at least we could learn from this. And
Yeah. Yeah.
mhm.
Okay, so we're getting close on time, but we do have a couple more questions in the chat that I want to try and get to. So there was a question about, so if they have a student that qualifies but was not aware, are they able to reach out after they enroll for a semester?
Yes, people can apply anytime. If the semester's already started and they're a new customer, we're not going to be able to help during that semester, but our plan would be to help get that student ready for the very next semester. So right now it's August 19th. Most schools have started. If you have somebody who's interested, have them apply, and then for spring term, that would be the goal.
Okay, great. And I believe we touched base on this when we kind of expanded that definition of disability. But one of the questions was, what if they did not have an IEP in high school, but they do have a mental health disability?
Yeah, and so you don't have to have an IEP or a 504 plan to get our services. You just have to have a disability. If it's documented, then we will work with your health providers, your mental health providers to get the documentation. So if they've gotten therapy in the past or psychiatric, they've seen a psychiatrist or they've been hospitalized and the customer gives us access to that documentation, then we can use that to determine eligibility. And again, if they come in, we do get people who come in sometimes with a mental health diagnosis and they don't have any documentation. So we could send that person out for testing. Now that is going to delay, you know, if somebody comes in June for services and classes start in August, we need to have time to get the testing done, pay for it. And but I think if they did it now, we could probably get it ready in time for the spring term. But yeah, we help get the documentation, but yeah, we have a lot of people who come in with just a mental health diagnosis.
Okay, so I think I got to all of the questions in the chat. We have about another minute. So any other questions or comments for Amy while we have her?
Thank you, Amy, for coming and being willing to share information. I know not all of these grantees are working specifically on our grant with students with disabilities, but we also know students with disabilities exist in every facet of life. So great resources, great information.
Yeah.
Thank you, thank you, thank you for coming and being willing to help with this.
Yeah, thank you for giving me the time. And I do want to say, and kind of Omar, going back to your question, if you've got my phone number and my email, if you have a specific concern, don't hesitate to send it to me, and I'll get you connected with the bureau chief, the assistant bureau chief for that area. Because I can tell you, Director Patrick, who has a disability herself, she wants people to have access to training. So we need to go out of our way to make sure they are getting access to the training. And so if there's a barrier in our way, we need to look at it and overcome it. And thank you, everybody. I appreciate the time.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate all this, this
Thank you.
information.
Thanks.
Thank you all very much. Angela or Emma, anything to close us out?
Thank you, everyone, for coming. I'm so glad there's a big group here. As Brittany said earlier, once the video is uploaded and ready to go and the slide deck is uploaded and ready to go, we'll get that shared out to the listserv. So make sure you're checking your emails and your listservs.
All right. Thank you all.